so does having such an open heart center feel different for you compared to like before you knew human design? Like, do you feel like that's really changed? You mentioned feeling more like emotional before, or
Oh yeah.
yeah. So explain to me kind of like how you used to feel like you were more of an emotional person, and now how you feel like it's more of like a passing through kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was explained to me once that when you have an open center that you amplify. And so again, maybe it's the musician in me, but like when you have a guitar, it makes its own amount of sound, right? But if you plug it into an amplifier, you can really crank that baby up and everybody can hear it, right? And
Yeah.
so I have the misfortune, I'm not sure what you would say, of living with, I have a family, I have four kids, and I only have one that's got no emotional definition. So my husband plus three kids have solar plexus defined. And so
Okay.
you'll notice if you go to my website that I have decided to call myself a a wayfinder, excuse me, on the ocean of the collective, because that's what I feel like the solar plexus is just this one wave after another. And we're just kind of, you have to be a skilled sailor, a skilled navigator to know how to move through all of that moving water without crashing and flipping upside down and getting your hair wet. So yeah, so I totally yeah, when Moana came out, I was like, that's totally me. I'm just like this person who's like, the ocean isn't me, but it's guiding me somehow. And and I didn't really connect that to the solar plexus until a couple weeks ago. We were my husband and I got to learn how to sail a catamaran together, and the teacher was telling us that the water is a very good teacher. And I just, my head, that 6447 just exploded with this, like, oh, all these dots started connecting. I'm like, no, she's right. And that's the wisdom of this, having an open solar plexus, is that I am literally, if I remember that I am the Moana on a catamaran, that the ocean wave isn't me, it's not mine, it's somebody else's, and it's okay. I'm safe, I'm completely safe. The ocean's here, it's here for me to protect me and give me wisdom. And so yeah, my whole family except one has these big waves of feelings. And I actually believe, I'd have to ask one of them to be sure, but I really believe that one of the gifts I can give to someone that is defined emotionally is to open up myself. Like when I feel it coming, I used to kind of brace against it, like, oh, this is going to be a big wave, and don't knock me over. And now that I know it's not mine, yeah, right. Now that, because I'm, now that I know how sturdy I am, and that's come from a lot of experience with it. And I can just I can kind of suck it in like a sponge and not keep it, but just let it kind of, like the sand. I mean, the sand absorbs a ton of water on the beach, right? But then it also lets go of it really fast. And I think that's a comfort to the kids especially the kids of mine, because I bet it feels a lot more overwhelming to them inside. Your solar plexus is defined. I'm sure when you're a young person, it kind of feels like I'm losing it and I can't control it. And it's very scary. And to have your mom go, hey, I'm a big open hug for you because I know you're having a big feeling. You're cool and this is safe and I'm here for you. That's about all I do until the wave passes, because there's really no talking to someone in the middle of their wave anyway, right? I mean, you tell me. I don't experience it, but I'm trying to go.
So
What would it
yeah,
be like for a 6-year-old to have a big emotional wave all the time? It would be hard.
yeah, to add to that. So again, I can only speak from a 5/1 emotional
Yeah.
projective standpoint. However, to be honest with you, you even saying that, yeah, like I felt as if I had to hold it all together all the time.
Sure.
And as a 5/1, people thought I was this perfect, being who had it all together. And these
Right.
emotional waves were going in and out, and I didn't realize what was happening. And I do believe it was a lot of why I got an eating disorder really young at 14, was because I was out of control, because I did not know how to deal with the emotions going on. They teach us as kids, even like just, I mean, our society teaches us just, deal with it, keep going on, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
kind of, we don't realize that it's so important to have someone to go to and to feel like you can talk to and be in a safe space where they're not
Yeah.
going to amplify your emotions. And yeah, like you said, like because it can feel like a lot. And so what my advice would be, if anyone has an emotional authority, is to go to a trusted person and say, hey, I don't want to bombard you. Is this a time and space that you can let me talk? I don't need you to give me advice. I just need it to be out. I need it to be out of my system, because it's like kind of like sometimes you just need to like get it all out there, and then it's like done, and then it's like you can work through it. But when you hold it in, that's when it bursts open, and it's like
Yes.
bad. And so the way you described how you hold that and how you just absorb it, but you don't have to hold on to it, is probably one of
Right.
the most beautiful ways I've ever heard anybody describe
It
that. And I
is.
think that's amazing for parents watching,
Yeah.
to definitely
Oh,
hear,
yeah. And
because
even just like fighting like I used with my daughter, she's a little bit older than my boys, and she has the 39-55, and one of my other boys does too. And Karen calls that the fickle 55 because their moods do change a little more rapidly than the other emotional definitions. And she'd wake up sometimes just like mad to be alive, right? Like she has no reason for it. Her life's going fine. She's getting A's at school, and she just hates being alive one morning. And I used to feel like, oh my gosh, is she suicidal? I mean, like I was very reactive before I learned human design. And now with my boy that is that saying has that same channel, I can go, I know it's just a mood and it'll pass. And I go, I love you. It,
yeah,
I even have taught,
no,
kind of
no,
coached him. I've showed him his chart and said, sometimes you wake up because you don't feel like being, around, and or that you hate the world because of this. And because we call it the fickle 55, you just have different feelings all the time, and it's okay. You don't have to. I mean, I don't feel. I felt some pressure to like teach her how to be gratitude and teach her how to have gratitude and teach her how to cope with her big feelings. And now I'm more like, I think it's a little more validating to just say you're having a big feeling, it's cool,
yes,
and
yeah,
you'll
you
get
never
clarity
have
if you
to
just
hope
let
and
it
pray.
happen and wait it out, and then
Yes,
right then the magic comes.
so
So I don't know.
beautiful, so
And
beautiful.
she just posted something on Facebook maybe like 2 weeks ago that had this picture, a meme of this kid that was like having a rainy day, and then she's like, this is me after I go to my mom's. And it had the sunshine and everything was fine, and I don't say or do anything to fix it. I literally just let her come into my space, and I sponge off some of her energy by just being with her, and I pass out unconditional positive regard all the time when she's in my space, because she's a 20 something now. See, I'm dating myself again. She's a 20 something now, and she has life stress too, just like everybody else. And sometimes she just needs to be somewhere where she doesn't have to be in charge, and she doesn't have to
Yeah,
hold her feelings all by herself. Cause like you said, it can feel like this pressure to hold it all together. I think
yeah,
she does have a 5 line too. So she gets a lot of pressure to
yes,
be the
yes, yeah.
savior of everybody or whatever.
Mhm,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, if you have a 5 line and you have an emotional authority, like, yeah, you've got to find a place that you feel like you don't have to hold space for anyone but yourself, and that someone can kind of just be there to hold your space. Not that
Yeah.
they're doing anything, but you just
Right.
feel safe and comforted, and that you don't owe anyone anything. I think everybody deserves that. And that was
Totally.
just absolutely just so, I feel like you should just teach a course on that, because the most
Okay,
beautiful
I'll
way
try.
I've
I'll
ever
think
done.
about it. I will.
Yeah,
Thanks for the invitation. I'll
sorry,
definitely
I'm
consider.
literally just putting more on you.
That's okay. I agree with you. That's one of my passions, I think, with the human design as a tool, is to just, I mean, I've learned a ton from parenting kids that are completely different designs than me. And I'd like to, that's one of my passions, is to help people, like, because some of that used to trigger me too. The big feelings would trigger me. And so I had to learn to get over, not react and not operate in my own shadow. And I had to decondition quite a bit first. And then I could come into it with more of like the wisdom of the open center and handle it differently. And I don't, it just takes it takes some time to journal through that or whatever. I'm not quite
Absolutely.
sure what the container will be, but thank you for recognizing that there's definitely some healing that could help other people there.
Yeah,
So
and I do think it's also a responsibility for people with defined to also recognize their role in it as well, because it's not
yeah,
just defined. It's also, how do I, as a defined person, emotionally go about this correctly, and
right.
not dump things on people either. It is a two-way street, and I
Oh
think
yeah.
everything it is. So I think that that's definitely something in the
Oh
future.
yeah, like asking for what you need appropriately
Yeah,
instead of just like taking it. Yeah,
yes,
totally.
of course,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so give
Good
me
wisdom there, Sammy.
thank you.
Yeah.
Give me an example of something beautiful that has come from your authority. I mean, I know you've already given me so many,
Oh,
but anything that pops into your head.
something beautiful that's come from being a mental projector.
Mhm.
Wow. The more I embrace my design and just go with it, the more I start to feel a little like Mary Poppins, which is kind of, I mean, I don't know if you're a fan of Mary Poppins. There's
Yeah.
definitely some, overtures in that movie that were of its time. So that aside, I'm not endorsing any of the overtures or any of the
Agreed.
whatever capitalism statements and all that stuff. But what I am endorsing is that this experience where if you really are like aligned and my energy is good, I've gotten enough rest. I have, one of my bad habits that I'm working on right now is to like find a stopping point with a project instead of driving myself to finish with, because you start off with the right glowy energy, right? And then at some point you're like, I just want to finish this. So it's not, I get this, like, I just don't want to have to do this again tomorrow because I just want to finish
Yes.
this blog post or this project or whatever. And so I'll just push myself and exhaust myself to finish because I don't know when I'll have the energy to do it again. And so um, I'm learning to just let go of like a timeline. I think projectors need to just embrace that they have a longer timeline than, in some ways, we have a longer timeline than other types. But in other ways, if we let go of the timeline completely, sometimes I'm really surprised, like this Mary Poppins experience happens, and I just suddenly manifest really fast something
Mhm.
I hardly even put any effort into at all. And I'm starting to get accustomed to with like, if I work with my own energy correctly, I actually move faster when I'm in ease and joy than I do if I'm trying to force myself to have ego definition when I don't.
Yeah.
um, so,
Yeah.
a little about why that's a deconditioning piece for me, because maybe it will help someone else. My mother, again, of blessed memory, was a manifesting generator. And she used to tell me all the time that I couldn't try new things like a new sport at school or whatever, because she would say, because you quit things as fast as you start them. And then I don't know if I should spend the money if you're not actually going to stick with it. But that was actually a message that she had to parent herself with. I'm not actually that way at all. I'm a person who doesn't work fast enough for a manifesting generator. So it looks like I quit working on it. But actually, now that I don't have pressure to, live up to her standards, I've, and which I haven't had for a long time. I mean, I moved out and became my own person, right? But when I got out of needing to, have some sort of timeline that she was determining for something, I finished projects just fine if I give myself, 15 years to do it or 10 years to do it instead of 10 weeks or
Yes.
15 weeks. You know what I'm trying to say? So just embracing that some of the bigger ideas in my life that are mine, that weren't just me holding a template for someone else, may take 10 years of my life to finally come to that right place. But I won't hurt myself in the process of doing it. And it'll be full of beautiful, shiny energy then, instead of this, when you push yourself to do something that's not the right mojo or whatever, it feels like sticky and icky,
Yeah.
and the energy doesn't quite shine the right way. I don't know if I'm using the right words to describe it,
No,
but yeah,
truly, I think this is a projector thing. So
yeah,
like, because I'm fully resonating with you, and let me just tell you, anyone projector who's listening to this, yeah, when you are literally sitting there, like, in your head feels like it's gonna explode, and you're
yeah,
like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Like, I need to
yeah.
get this done. It is not the right time. Let it go.
No,
Let
it
it,
never
let it
is.
go. Go run around and do like freaking cartwheels or something. Go play.
Walk, yeah, take a
Go
walk.
play
Yeah.
on chalk. Like, I literally will play with chalk. I'll do the childish things like that make me, Callie, come here, that make me feel like I can let my spirit go and just let it go. Let it go. Because you
Mhm.
know what? The second you stop worrying, the second you stop trying to make things happen and happen and happen and happen, is the second it is the easiest thing to make happen. Literally.
Yeah, and it kind of comes to you then. Yep.
Yeah, I always tell
Right.
people the less I do, the more, like, the better outcome I have. Like, literally, if
Yep.
I push, nothing happens. But the second I stop pushing, like,
Yep.
everything comes to me, and it's all, and you're right. I love the way you said that, of like, don't put a timeline on it. It could take 10 years. And for some people, they're like, oh my God, 10 years. But
No,
it's
I
like,
I
you have
actually
a lifetime to do this
right,
stuff,
exactly.
It's not, and it's supposed to be like that. 10 years could literally teach you everything you need for it to be the exact way it's actually supposed to be. So, like,
Absolutely.
let go of this need or desire to have a specific timeline, because when I put timelines on things, I'm telling you, I stress out. So I
Right,
think
me
that
too.
is a beautiful example for any projector. I know
Well,
it's
and I
hard.
have a caveat to that because I mean, because I don't want it to sound like we're just, we just sit around and eat bonbons and wait for life to
Oh
tell us what to
yeah.
do. Because it's not like that either, right? I use my Evernote actually, and I have a task list in there. I have blog ideas that I'm going to write someday, but I don't write them till I feel inspired to write them. I mean, like I get the download, right? And I'll write it down, and hopefully nobody else writes it before I do, or whatever. But but if it's meant to be out at some point, I'll feel inspired to write it that day. And so when I'm trying to decide what to do next, because I'm at a place where I let go, I also kind of multitask. I don't ever just have one thing I'm super
Yeah.
excited about, because if I do, I'll get too much energy focused into it. And we have a really focused aura. So yeah, you can totally focus the life out of something if your only focus in life is that one thing. So
Yeah.
like I have my music. Sometimes I'll take a break from writing and play and work on learning some new music because I need a break from that creative thing because I'm focusing too hard. I'm working, I have a couple volunteer projects I do in the community. I homeschool. So like sometimes I'll take a break from my work and just we're going to start a new science project for 3 weeks just so I have something else to put that creative energy into. And energy is probably not the right word, but that inspiration, and let it go. So I'm not letting it go forever, just for 3 weeks while we do a science project, and I'll come back to it.
Yeah,
But still I have daily tasks. My house is not
of
a mess. We
course.
clean, we take out the garbage, I pay the bills on time. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm definitely not lazy, but I have to watch. And I'm not sure if I know exactly the moment. Maybe you figured this out, but there's like this line in the sand where I've focused on this enough versus I focused on it too long. And yeah, there's a line back to my Mary Poppins inspiration, right? She says, enough is as good as a feast. And I'm like, that's totally projectorish. I should totally like get that tattooed on my arm.
I
Enough
love that. I
enough is as
really
good as
do.
a feast. I mean, she's saying it. Yeah, she's actually saying it to the kids in one scene where they want to play longer because they had such a good time. And she's like, no, enough is as good as a feast. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that is a total like open root center thing everyone should have, you know, it's a
Yeah, no,
nice
and
mantra.
I really do think everything that you described, like the way that I was saying it, and then you're like, but we're not just sitting around, because you're totally
No,
right. I have to have, like, literally words that you said just resonate with me so much. Like, I have to have multiple different things going on, because you're right, we penetrate our aura. And so if we focus on one thing, it almost like distract us from the bigger picture, which is what we're here to be. And so
right,
like, yeah, we can get so caught up in something and so invested in something that we're losing all these other opportunities, and we're like struggling, when if we're
right.
more open. Like my saying is, I am open to wherever my life leads me, and I'm
I
always
like that.
open to new opportunities if they present themselves and they're correct for me. Because I think if we put ourselves in these boxes of we can only do certain things, then we miss out on so many opportunities and so many abilities to be creative and take breaks, even though we're not taking breaks, but it feels like a break because we're working on something new. And so,
Right.
yeah, that was just so, I love the way that you explain that. I just,
Thanks.
I feel like I get so much like advice, and not even advice, but just like inspiration from you. And it's
And
so nice to
validation.
hear it.
It's yeah,
Yeah.
when I hear you say something too, it's like, oh good, I'm not the only person that experiences that, because I mean, we're not the majority. Projectors aren't the majority, so we can sometimes really feel a little out of place in a world of a lot of heavy sacral energy. So
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly, like that validation, and hearing it in a different way too can
yeah,
kind of spark something as well.
sure.
So another thing I wanted to ask was like, okay, so if anyone ran their chart today and they
Mhm.
were like, okay, I am a mental authority projector,
Yeah,
what advice would you give them just to start out with, as far as like, because I know like you mentioned there's tons of different ways, or I know there's websites that say there's no authority. I just
right.
want to know what you would tell them, as far as like what you think the best advice for them to go forward or to start off with.
Yeah, I would say just to really lean into your strategy, which is to wait for the invitation. And I know that again, you don't need an invitation to eat lunch today. If you're hungry, your stomach's inviting you to eat something.
Yeah.
You don't, you don't need to wait for a sign in the clouds to decide to pay your electric bill. So go ahead and pay it if you have the money to do that today. Like I know that sounds crazy, but when I first took this very literally, I was like, well, wait a minute, what do I have to wait for an invitation for? So these are for the big things, right? If I am going to change a career, if I'm going to launch a new business, those things I can, like with my blog, I can write as much content as I want, but when it involves other people, I want someone to ask me to do a reading, for example. Now that I'm certified, I need to wait for them to invite me to do that. I can't push that on people because the
Yes,
energetic exchange won't be there if I'm not being asked to do it.
I would agree.
So yeah, but I can, one of my friends, Ardelia Lee, she has a really beautiful website called That Projector Life. I actually would highly recommend all projectors to start with some of her stuff because I have a lighthouse behind me. See the lighthouse?
Yeah.
She is where I picked up that lighthouse metaphor, because you can build your lighthouse up, make sure that the windows are clean and your light's shining out there so that people can because just us sharing our message, the things we feel inspired to talk about or write about, or like this video series that you're doing, will help people that may or may not ever like buy a service from us, because that's what a lighthouse does. It's up on a hill and it shines its light, and boats that don't even have to come to that shore will be guided by it, right? But then
Yeah.
there are a few people that need to land here and stay here and learn something, and they'll be drawn to the shore by that same lighthouse. And so that's kind of what I imagine myself doing when I write a blog or when I set up. I have tons of content that I've started creating, and I'm just doing it with the intention that I don't know who needs to hear this, but I'm just going to put it out there. And then I know someone at some point will invite me to actually have a one-on-one exchange with them or take a class that I've set up or whatever. So yeah, it's
That's a lot of what my YouTube has been, and a lot of what
yeah,
I felt called to do that, because I was like, when I first started as a projector, I was like, no, I'm not doing any of this marketing thing. It did not work for me. I was like, I need
right.
to find my own voice, and I know that it will lead me to the right people, and it has. And
Yeah.
so I want to just go ahead and
Yeah, authority never, ever, ever overrides strategy. Strategy is always the thing. Okay, and
strategy.
so just to recap for people who are new, career changes or big business, like I'm not going to go borrow money to start a business that I don't have an invitation for. So career, big business decisions, marriage, and then moving, especially if you're an environmental projector, or I would even say reflectors don't need the invitation to move, but that's a really big decision for them,
Mhm.
because if you're not in the right place, like we talked about earlier, that can be really damaging to their soul. So
Oh,
um,
absolutely.
yeah,
And take
and mental
all the
projectors
time
are
you need
sensitive
as
to
well.
environment too. What?
Yeah, and I was gonna say, and take all the time you need as well, regardless of if you're an emotional authority, whatever authority you are,
Right.
mental, whatever. Do like you will find when it clicks. You will
Yep.
find when it's right. And no matter what any reading or whatever someone says, look internally for that more than anything of what people are saying. Because I think that
Yeah.
works best. Like, even if you are invited, give yourself the space and tell that person, I need space to figure this out. Because honestly, if they don't allow you to have that time, that immediately that that's not correct for you.
Yeah.
That's something I got taught, and I think that
Yeah.
that's something I live by for sure. I want to
Yeah.
make sure that people have that website you were saying. So is it
Oh, sure.
thatprojectorlight.com?
Oh, thatprojectorlife.com. Yep.
Light. Sorry, light
Yeah,
with a
and I can send it to
light.
you on after we're done talking too, so you can
Okay.
have it typed
Yeah,
out
I'll
right.
have that underneath the comments as
Yeah,
well,
she's
so that
awesome. And she talks about projectors being a lighthouse. Yeah, you don't need an invitation to build your lighthouse, whatever that means to you, and to shine your light. What you need an invitation for is to actually help the individual boat that's in your bay. They have to come to you into your bay. So
I'm
um,
excited to check it out myself.
yeah, it's cool. And hey, before I ever knew anything about human design, I have a short story. Can I tell you one more short story? I know
Absolutely,
we
of course.
totally went over our time limit. So
No,
yeah,
like I said, it's what it's meant to be. If I'll
yeah,
just,
sure,
I can do it 2 different videos, part
sure.
1, part 2. So,
So long before I ever knew anything about human design, my very first career change in my life, actually my very first career, I mean, I had a couple of different jobs out of high school while I was going to college. And then I graduated from college and I went a semester where I was just applying for every job. I even applied to be a car salesman, which I can tell you right now would have been I don't know. I might have been okay at it because I am good at looking into the G center of just about any human and reading them, right? So I might have been able to like read where people are really at, but I definitely, I'm not the pushy salesperson. So
Yeah,
anyway, but it was just not going to work because at the time I was a single mom and there's no way I could have worked 80 hours a week. And what was I going to do for childcare? But anyway, so I decided to take another semester of school because I didn't have a job offer in hand this last summer, the summer right after I graduated. And I just took an accounting class or something just to make sure I didn't lose my student loans and all that stuff. And I had some money to live on while I was
right.
waiting to see what the universe would bring next. And I got a call right after I turned down it was almost like the job about the car salesman job was a test because I turned it down. And then like the next Tuesday, I think it was, somebody called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I heard you were looking for a job." It was an old friend of the family. And I'm like, "Yeah," I'm looking like, "Who did you hear that from?" I don't know, whatever. And she said, "I think I have a tech position to do some counseling. Would you like to try your hand at counseling? I think you would be really good at it." And so I had not only an invitation, but a recognition as well. I've heard you talking to people, and I think you would be really good at it. I had done some volunteer work where I think she caught me like giving somebody some advice they were asking me about or something. I don't know how she knew I would be good at it, but there was that recognition there too. And that was like, I mean, I was probably 23. That was way before I ever knew anything about human design. And I ended up spending 12 years doing it. And it was super meaningful for me and for the people that I was able to help because of that. And it was a totally invited, I didn't even apply for the job. I literally got an interview based off of this invitation. So, and actually I had to go to 5 interviews because the person kept blowing me off, and not my friend that invited me to the interview, but her boss. And so it was this whole rigmarole, but it was super easy. It was like the shortest interview I've ever been in, and I got the job. It was hilarious. So, and I spent
I'm seriously
12 years doing it then.
again. Like I don't know what it is about like you and you give me so many. I mean, seriously, no one gives me goosebumps, but like I have so many goosebumps.
Sorry.
No, it's
I don't know if I should be sorry or not. I'd be like,
beautiful.
"Thank
Yeah,
you."
don't apologize. Be like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, like it's so I just feel so like you are in such an inspiration. You are such a
You.
light. Like talking to you, just it literally brightens my
Thank
spirit
you
up.
so much.
It seriously, have been incredible to talk to, and I'm just so grateful that I got to connect with you. And I am so looking forward to maybe other interviews in the future with
Yeah.
you. And I'm just so gracious that you got to do this with me, and I'm so humbled and honored that I have your time to do this.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks so much for inviting me, Sammy. And like, let me know whatever I can do to be supportive of your work too. I think I mean, you are such a channel of light for so many people. And I really recognize the healing work that you're doing too. So yeah, just let me know. I actually was on your website the other day, just kind of, I had looked at it at first when you first sent me the invitation, and then I was looking at it again after our chat, and I'm like, she is such a beautiful soul. So I don't know if you could feel that energy coming from me, but you're a very beautiful soul. You have a very strong heart for people, and I hope that the universe blesses you with many opportunities, just enough opportunities, not too many to stress you out, but enough opportunities that you continue to be encouraged on your path. So
Thank you so much.
welcome.
Yeah. And is there any last words or advice that you would like to say, or?
Good. I'm good. I think I've talked enough.
Okay, I always like to let people
I
have
told my husband, I'm like, I hope this interview doesn't go too long. I don't want them to think mental projectors just talk and talk and talk and talk
no,
and talk.
you know what? And if you
But we
do,
do.
let's just say that you will get goosebumps from all of it. So
Sure.
you are an inspiration. Okay. All right. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I'm gonna end this.
Yes, thank you.